On today's installment of Weekend Wankshop, I'm going to give you guys everything that you need to become a neoclassical shred master. Puffy shirt not included, but it is encouraged. Hey there kids, it's a brand new installment of Weekend Wankshop here with your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Now it seems like just about every day I get a message from somebody asking me what they need to do to capture that neoclassical sound. That way they can sound like the next DingDang Valvoline. Because it's not just the Strat and the wall of Marshalls and the leather pants and the loathing of donuts that makes old YingYang Milkshake sound as amazing as he does. And it's also not as simple as just playing the harmonic minor or Phrygian dominant scale. There's certain things you can do inside of those neoclassical chord progressions and your phrasings and the way that you solo over them that can really give you that sound that you're looking for. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you guys how to play that etude that I made up that was at the start of the video. It's a great way to get your hands in sync and eliminate tension in your playing while building speed. But then we're also going to talk about some of the theory going on behind the chord progression and the way that I put those licks together that really follows the sound of those chords. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Sign up today even for just that $1 a month level, and you're going to get access to a ton of bonus goodies like extra videos, downloadable tabs to go along with this, as well as a ton of practice tracks at various tempos to help you get this etude up to speed. Because trust me, fast is good. More faster is more better. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm once again using my lovely Ernie Ball Luke III here into the Fractal Audio Axe FX 3. But before we go giving away YingYang Milkshake secrets, let's hear that lick again at stepdad speed. Alright, so this Bach and roll shred fest from hell thing is in the key of A minor. It's mainly using the A minor scale, which is to say all of our natural organic notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, the good old musical alphabet. It also uses a little bit of that A harmonic minor scale, as well as a little bit of major scale stuff in there too. They're going to talk about the theory and stuff later on. But here are the licks and stuff that we're going to be playing. These are all based around 3-note groupings that fit nicely into the hand and target chord tones going on in the chord progression. First thing that we're going to play starts off here on the D note on the A string. And like I said, these are 3-note groupings. This one's going to use D, E, and F, just like that right there. Next, we're going to drop down here onto the D string to start off with our G note. That means our grouping of notes is going to be G, A, and B. With all these, I'm just playing up twice, and then playing the first note one more time. Just like that. Next, start off on B, on your G string. You're going to have B, C, and D if you're following the scale. That leads us right into the next part here, which starts off on the C note on the G string. You're going to have the notes C, D, and E under your fingers. Then jump down here to F on the D string, play up F, G, and A. And then we're going to land right here on the A note on the G string. That gives us the notes A, B, and C. So we just played. The next section here is going to use the same shape on 2 different strings, so it's pretty easy to play. Start off here on the B note on the G string. You're going to play B, C, D. Then go up and over here to the D string, fret number 6 for the G sharp note. Play essentially that same shape. It gives you G sharp, A, and B. Okay? After that, what you're going to do is to take that shape and go up 3 frets, still on the D string. That way we're playing B, C, and D. Okay, so it's just like that. Now you could put these in a bunch of different positions, but the reason I'm moving up the neck like this is to get ready for the next section. But you know, try to take those starting notes and move them around to wherever you think feels the best for you. After this, we're going to play A, B, C, starting off on the D string. Then you're going to play up A, B, C sharp. That little lift there into that more major sound. And then lastly, jump up here to C sharp, D, and E. So that concludes the first section. Let's play that again here. Yeah, after this, you're going to be playing all the exact same stuff, just up 1 octave. So our positions and stuff are going to change, but we're still going to be starting on D, then G, then B, and all that jazz. So we're going to start off here on the D note on the 12th fret D string. Going to be playing up D, E, F, just like before. Drop down to the next string to play G, A, B. And then drop down onto the next string to play B, C, D. That's your first group of 3. After this, move up here to your C, D, and E notes on the 2nd string. Move that shape down here to the 10th fret on the G string. That way you can play F, G, A. Then drop down here to play A, B, C. So that's... Now we come up to this section right here, starting on B, C, D. And then I drop down on this string to play G sharp, A, and B. Then just jump right back up to play B, C, D. Pretty easy. Then we end up on A, B, C, A, B, C sharp, and then C sharp, D, E. Again, I could put that here. Do that if you think you're more comfortable with it. Just try all these out in different positions. So the second section, the octave up part, is kind of like this. Now, of course, it wouldn't sound neoclassical enough if we didn't harmonize that bitch, right? Because, of course, you got to have that sick thirds harmony if you want to get that classic Iron Maiden, cape blowing in the wind, ruffly shirt exposing your chest hair kind of sound, which, of course, we all do, right? So, basically, everything that we're going to play here for the third section is harmonized with the first section. And really the easiest way to think about that is it's kind of like playing a game of leapfrog. For whatever note guitar number 1 is on, guitar number 2 is 3 notes ahead of it in the scale. Now that doesn't just mean 3 frets. That's not the same thing. I'm talking 3 notes in the scale. So if guitar number 1 is on A, guitar number 2 will be playing a C. If guitar number 1 is on C, guitar number 2 will be on C, D, E. Just 3 ahead of it in the scale. That's basically what we're doing here. Let's start off here on the F note. On the high E string here, up at position number 13, I'm going to be playing F, G, A like this. Drop down to B, C, D. Then drop down here to D, E, F. Okay? Then we're going to be playing E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, E. Okay. After this, we're going to be playing D, E, F, B, C, D, D, E, F again. And then this last section here, we're going to be playing C, D, E, C sharp, D, E, and then lastly E, F, G, and ending on that F note there at the very end. So our harmonized section is going to sound like this. And that is the whole dang thing. Now when it comes time to start getting your picking speed up on this, I got a couple things that I'll recommend that you do. For one, use those practice tracks that I'm providing over on that Patreon page. Again, even if you just sign up for like $1 a month, you get access to those plus a ton of other stuff. I'll also be putting up the MIDI tracks, that way you can make your own perfect practice session and like gradually increase the speed as much or as little as you want. But whenever you're going through these, what you want to remember is to stay nice and loose and stay in close contact with the string. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I ever saw about really tightening up your pick stroke came from the absolutely phenomenal Rick Graham, who has taught us all so much just by being such a monster player. But he had some advice over on his channel, which you should totally check out, where he talked about shortening your pick strokes for a higher speed by simply thinking about sticking to the other side of the string as soon as you go through it, like this. You can see how I'm going through the string and then kind of acting like my pick is magnetically attracted to the other side of it. I'm not letting it just blow through and hang in space. I'm kind of thinking about touching the string from the other side as fast as I can. Practicing stuff good and slow like that, with the notes sounding really short like that because of the way your pick is like sticking to the string. If you practice like that slowly for a little while, you really start to develop those mechanics and start shortening up that pick stroke a little bit, which is what you need whenever you're playing rapid fire on a single string like what we're doing right here. I have a lot of people asking where the picking motion should be coming from, as far as like, is it an elbow thing like Vinnie Moore? Is it a wrist thing like Andy Wood? Is it a thumb thing like Yngwie Malmsteen? Honestly, I just named off 3 players who are amazing pickers that do stuff completely differently, and it all works for them. So whatever works for you, just go for it. You know, those 3 plus the kind of twist of the wrist kind of motion like that, those are the 4 most important kind of picking motions that I see most players use. Just go with whatever you can do and be relaxed and in control of. Don't feel pressured to do the thumb thing because that's what Yngwie does, or to do the elbow thing because that's what your mom does. You know what I'm talking about. So just go with whatever works for you and feels comfy. Now, I deliberately put this together as speed bursts with little breaks in it like that to help you guys build speed while reducing tension. Anybody that watches my channel knows that I've said a million times the best way to build speed is through speed bursts. Sprints, not marathons. That's what you want to do if you're trying to increase your picking speed. You can blast out a handful of notes really quickly, and then using that rest time that I gave you in between every lick, use that as a time to evaluate what was tensing up while you were playing fast. I see a lot of players that, you know, if they're playing like a fast burst of notes, I'll see them like grip the pick really tightly and then loosen up. I'll see the shoulders hunch, then loosen up with every burst of speed. Speed bursts are a great way for you to evaluate what's going on with you physically while you play. Anything that releases during that break was tight while you were playing. And you know, there is a little bit of necessary tension needed to play, such as, you know, the tension needed to hold on to a pick or whatever. There is a little bit of tension that you need. But if you find yourself using unnecessary tension where you're like, man, why did my toes curl up when I play? That's unnecessary tension. You don't need that in order to play guitar. And practicing with speed bursts like this is the best way to do it. I'm also going to advise that you guys practice this slowly enough that you can make sure you're really just getting 1 pick stroke per note over here. One of the things I see a lot of times with players is that the right hand just kind of mindlessly plays fast, and the left hand tries to play in rhythm. And some notes get hit twice, some notes get hit once, some notes just get hammered on and people think that they're picking them when they're not. So make sure you practice this slowly enough to where you can really make sure you're getting one pick stroke per note in the left hand. You should be starting every burst on a downstroke and ending every burst on a downstroke. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and so forth. So if you ever find yourself like ending on an upstroke, something was not connected between the hands. Take it a little bit slower and then gradually speed it up. So now that you got those licks under your mitts, let's talk about what makes it sound the way that it does. What gives us that Bach and roll kind of sound that we associate with this whole neoclassical thing, right? Well, it's not just in the licks or the scales. A lot of times it's in the chord progressions that we're playing around. The chords are the king. What we're playing over dictates how we sound. We're not necessarily always in the driver's seat just because we chose to use a particular scale pattern. It's all about the chords that we're playing over and how they react to the way that that particular scale pattern sounds. So this chord progression I put together in sort of a typical neoclassical way is following this chord progression. It goes D minor, G, C major, F, B minor 7 flat 5, E7, A minor, and then A major. Let's do that again. D minor, G major, C major, F major, B minor 7 flat 5, E7, A minor, A major. So this is in the key of A minor, but it really takes the long way around the barn before it actually delivers you to that A minor. It's kind of like this huge tour around the key before it finally lands you at that resolution of A minor. The thing that you'll notice about this chord progression is the way that the tension just kind of continuously builds throughout it. First couple chords are pretty benign. Those all sound pretty easy listening. But then when we get to right here, that's where it gets interesting, right? So on the B right there, we have this minor 7 flat 5 chord. Sometimes it's called a half diminished chord. Just don't call it late for dinner, and that's a joke that I just put into there. It's a good one, right? Anyway, so that chord right there is where things start getting weird. We got that tritone sitting in there from B to F. It's getting a little bit ugly. And then that leads us around here to this E7. Okay, now this is where things get a little bit interesting. E7 contains a G sharp note in it. A G sharp note is not in our A minor scale. If you guys watched my video I put out last week about thinking about chord and scale connections, definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't. You'll remember how I talked about how chords are kind of cut from the cloth of the scale, so to speak. So what happened here? This should be an E minor chord if we're staying in key. That's got our G note in it. But I put that G sharp in there when I turned it into E7. Well, what happens if we take an A minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and swap out that G sharp instead of the G? It's everybody's favorite, our good old harmonic minor scale, right? Now you'll notice that if you think about the licks that we played, it wasn't until right there that we unveiled that G sharp note. I point this out because people just say, oh, to sound like Yngwie, play harmonic minor all the time. You don't. You play harmonic minor at certain times, okay? That G sharp note that we're adding in with harmonic minor, that was not on the table before. None of these chords featured it. There's no G sharp in any of those, right? There it is, though. Once the rhythm guitar has given us permission, so to speak, to go harmonic minor and start using that G sharp note instead of the G, we can do it. If it was just harmonic minor the entire time, it wouldn't have that cool, like, ooh, that little twist, you know, that you get whenever suddenly you can use this new note in the scale because the chord gave you permission to. So just think about that. You can't just use harmonic minor anytime. The chords have to be giving you permission to do that. Okay, now the reason I used an E7 instead of just an E minor like usual is because it strengthens that resolution whenever we go to A minor next. Listen to the difference here. If I play E minor to A minor, it's fine, it's kind of cowboyish. But if you do E7 to A minor, it sounds even more tense and the resolution is that much more satisfying. It's like way better, right? Again, that kind of plays into some of the stuff that we talked about a couple weeks ago whenever I did that Marty Friedman arpeggio lesson, where I talked about how any dominant sounds great as long as it's falling a fourth away, you know? So in this case, E7, E, F, G, A, you know, it does that fourth fall thing I talked about in that video. Watch that video if you haven't too. So anytime you have a dominant chord, if you resolve a fourth away, it's gonna sound pretty dang great. And that's because, really, if you think about it, that E7 chord introduced us to this G sharp note, right? It's just kind of begging to return to its home base, the key, the tonic of A. It makes it that much more like that E7 chord is just hanging off the edge of the cliff, you know? Waiting to be resolved whenever you go to A minor. That's why you can get away with that. That's why that works, is because of where you're going to next. Okay, so after you land on A minor, that's a big satisfying resolution, but then the whole thing has to start over again, right, on that D minor chord. What's the best way to get to some kind of D? Okay, there's D right there, right? Oh, I meant to put in some kind of joke about your crazy Aunt Julie knows how to find a D or something. Just act like I put that back there. So like if D is where we're headed to, we can make that resolution even better by playing an A7, right? Any dominant chord going to anything, whether it's major or minor, a fourth away, always sounds great. I think I played A major, or maybe I played A7. I can't remember. A7 would be more satisfying though. But again, listen to that resolution when I go to that A7 to D minor. So much better than if it just would have gone A minor, D minor. That doesn't sound like resolution to me, whereas that sounds like some tension was building. And again, you can see that chromatic line that creates too. A minor with the C note, A7 with the C sharp, tension's building, that's begging you to go to D minor with the D note right there. Whenever you use dominant chords like that, it creates these unusual kind of chromatic melodies going from chord to chord, and it really just strings your ear along very nicely to hear where the chord progression is going. But again, it's all about knowing when and where to use those dominants, and that's what composers like Bach and shredders like Yngwie are so good at doing. They know where to put a dominant chord to make the next resolution sound that much better. And I want to talk about the importance of some of those foundational classical style harmonies and chord progressions, because pretty much everything in European and Western music is based around those principles. And it's cool too when you learn a progression like that and it sounds very classical, and again, it sounds very Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. But then the cool thing is if you took that chord progression right there and you aged it forward a couple hundred years, you know, you let players pass around progressions like that from player to player to player, from genre to genre and style to style, even instrument to instrument, and watch it evolve. Here's the cool thing about this, and I just realized this right before I started filming the video. I wasn't even consciously thinking about this. But if I took that chord progression, D minor, G, C, F, B half diminished, E7, A minor, A dominant, whatever, and I thought about that in terms of like, boy, what would it sound like if a cool jazz guy played that and those chords were harmonized a little more deeply into their jazzier, you know, major 7, minor 7 kind of voicings. What would that sound like? it'd be kind of like this. Pretty rad, right? So that's essentially the chord progression from Spain by Chick Corea. That's a classic, like, jazz fusion sort of standard, if you guys don't know that one. But you listen to that and you don't even think for a second that it sounds classical. But that is what happens when a chord progression and a melodic style evolves over hundreds of years. You kind of lose where it started. It's kind of like looking at, dinosaurs versus chickens or whatever. The evolution can do startling things to the end result. And that's exactly what has happened with some of these classical style harmonies. So keep in mind whenever you learn these things, it's not just for doing the ruffly shirt sound. This is what everything else is based on too. So there's a lot to learn. Okay, let's talk about why these licks sound like those chords. Because it's one thing just to say, I'm using this scale. Here's the chord progression. Why does it work? I don't know. I do know why, and now you're about to as well. For every one of those chords that was going by, I specifically targeted parts of the scale that highlight important notes in those chords. Take a look at it this way. The first chord here is D minor, right? A D minor chord is made up of the notes D, F, and A. Those are the notes inside of that chord. The first run that we played, D, E, F. It uses the root note of that chord. It walks us up to the flat third of that chord and resolves back at the root again. So yeah, even though it is cut from the A minor scale, I'm specifically using the notes of it that cater to that chord at that time. Always think about playing in chord before you start thinking about playing in key. In chord is way more important. The next chord there is a G. And again, a G chord is in its GBD. The lick that we played features G, A, and B. So it's root, second, and third. So there's 2 out of the 3 notes of this lick are chord tones. And then for the next chord in there, the C is where we played C, D, E. A C chord is the notes C, E, and G. So whenever we play this lick, C, D, E, we're again playing 2 out of 3 chord tones. This continues through the entire thing. The F chord has its root, second, and third. The B minor 7 flat 5 has its root, flat second, flat third. I'm always starting off on a note that's in the chord, and I'm making the highest note of the lick another note in the chord. Again, you're giving the listener a lot of harmonic content right there, to where even if you don't hear the chord progression, you can still follow it with your ears just based on what this is implying. Now that you know the progression, you can really hear the chords behind that, even though there are no chords behind that. And again, it's because I'm always starting on a chord tone, taking you up to a chord tone, and back, rather than just randomly choosing notes from the Phrygian dominant scale or whatever. So think about that. It's going to make your soloing infinitely more melodic and really help you tie together the chord progression with the leads that you're playing. So there you go, guys, a classically inspired shred etude from hell to help you get those chops in line, reduce your tension, and learn a thing or two about some music theory and harmony. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing to the channel. Be sure to ring the bell down there for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold. And if you want to gain access to those backing tracks, tabs, and a ton of other bonus goodies, be sure to support my channel over on that Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Well, guys, it's been fun as always, but I think it's about time for me to go and shine up my leather pants and stable my Ferraris and whatnot. As for you guys, I recommend getting away from your dang old mobile device, grabbing a guitar, and getting to work. Less clicking, more picking.